Hey everyone, I'm your host Roddy Merritt,
And I'm Cody Russell.
and welcome to the Spaceman podcast presented by Merritt Productions. If you've ever wondered what really goes on behind the scenes of Merritt Productions, Mississippi's fastest growing production company and marketing agency, well, this is where we tell it all.
From creative strategy to cutting edge content, from high profile campaigns to the late night grind, this podcast is your all access pass to the world of Merritt Productions. We're talking stories, challenges, wins, and everything in between. The work, the people, the passion, this is how we make it happen.
Whether you're in the industry, on the grind, or just curious about what it takes to build a powerhouse brand, welcome to the Spaceman podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Spaceman podcast. My name is Cody Russell.
And I'm Roddy. And today I have a very good older friend of mine. This is kind of exciting because you are probably one of the few people that I still know or have had on the podcast or work with me or whatever that has known me longer than most people know me.
Yeah.
So today, good friend, older friend, Paul PAVOLNI
Right. Yeah.
is here with us. He's going to talk a little bit about, it's probably going to be more like a firing squad where me and Cody just ask you a ton of questions.
Oh, man, let's do it.
But I want to talk a little bit about how we know each other.
Yeah.
So for the people listening to the podcast that don't know, most of my life I was a musician. And in 2008, I moved to the Jackson, Mississippi area to pursue a career or a lifestyle in music. I was going to school for it. It was at Belhaven. And we actually ended up in church together.
Yeah.
And I was doing music and stuff like that. And fast forward to now, and I knew you'd worked for a marketing agency that did some production and things like that. And fast forward to now where we're kind of doing that sort of thing. You're now doing a podcast as well, which is
Head Smack.
Head Smack. It's
Yeah.
I've only listened to 2 episodes, but they were both super good. So yeah, today we just kind of talk a little bit with you about marketing and a little bit about your history and the podcast and all that kind of stuff. So welcome.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, we have known each other for 12 or so years, and so that's been awesome. It's been awesome seeing your evolution and seeing what you're doing now. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, Cody's got all kinds of questions about my past. I can tell. He's like,
I don't
what
know
was
if we should
Roddy
dig
like
into
12
that for
years
this
ago?
episode, huh? This be a part 2.
So for me, I kind of want to know more about. I want to know a little bit about. I guess tell everybody like your history, your background. What obviously you have an accent, so that's probably the first question. Like, where's he from?
Yeah. So a little bit about my history is my family migrated to Australia when I was 2. We took an immigrant ship from Italy, hit Spain, hit Africa, landed in Australia. And so I was 2 at the time, grew up in Australia. In my late teens, in my early 20s, actually, I decided to come to America to go to college. Went to college in California, met a California girl, got married, and stuck here. And so, we've moved around quite a bit. Moved to St. Louis, lived in Colorado for a while, and have now been in the Jackson area for the last 12 or so years. Been a creative kid all my life. I was the kid, doodling in class and not paying attention. I was the one,
weren't we all?
doing the little sketches and doodles and decorating the corners of my textbooks with doodles and meaningless stuff and not paying attention. Always was creative. Never really a great artist, but I was always creative. And so, I never could quite figure out what I was going to do with my life. Because I couldn't draw as well as some of the other kids. There were some kids that just were phenomenal, at least from my perspective. When they drew a dog, it looked real, like a photograph. Now if I looked at it, I would be like, yeah, it kind of looks goofy. But I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And so I went to an all-boys high school because it was a friend of the family had gone there. So my parents sent me there, and it was actually a trade school. And so and it was basically mini prison, like Lord of the Flies.
Oh, wow.
And so it was basically, it taught you the trades, it taught you metalwork and woodwork and, electrical work and all of the stuff that would be blue collar stuff, and all the stuff that I was terrible at. Like, I can't fix anything. Like, if my wife gives me a project, I buy a tool, and that tool gets used once and then goes in the garage somewhere. But I went to this high school, and during recess we would beat each other up for fun, and we just it's where I learned the game, where I learned branding. And for us, branding, instead of playing tag, we would have a tennis ball and we'd throw it at each other, and that was how we'd tag each other.
Wow!
And there was no rules to how hard you could throw the ball. And
okay.
But it was called branding because literally sometimes you went back to class with a brand on your forehead from somebody nailing you with a tennis ball. But there were a couple of art teachers there that, of course, being in a all-boys school, that's a trade school, they gravitated towards me because I was creative. And so they gave me attention and time. They had really unique names. It almost sounds like, they were from Hogwarts, because one of them was Mr. Zing and the other one was Mr. Hagblom. So Hagblom and Zing were my art teachers.
Nice.
In
Hard
high
to forget.
school. And so they took a liking to me because I was creative, but still I wasn't a great artist, but I was creative. Showed me photography, showed me, drawing and stuff. And it came time, to wrap up high school. And, they said, have you considered graphic design or graphic communications? I was like, well, what is that? They're like, I don't know what that is. They're like, well, it's, creating ads and things like that. And I'm like, let me do that. Let me give that a look. And so we went to like a work experience type thing where they kind of send you into a workplace similar to what a potential vocation would be. And so I went to this studio in downtown Melbourne, Australia, and saw what they were doing. And I'm like, I think this is what I want to do. I think this is what I'm supposed to do, because you're, as a graphic artist, you're taking other people's photographs, you're taking other people's illustrations, and you're putting it together in a strategic way. Mm-hmm. And so, because the difference between an artist and a designer is a strategic artist, and not every artist is a designer, and not every designer is an artist. And so, when I saw that you can take creativity and blend it with strategy, that you became a graphic designer, you became a designer that way. And so I kind of figured that's what I wanted to do. And so, for the last 30 plus years, I've been doing design, and, mostly branding, mostly, visual branding design, and love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a really long story.
No, I mean,
That's perfect.
It's good to hear. Like, I guess for me, like, I've always been stuck here in the United States, obviously, but in the South, and it's just neat for me to hear somebody from another part of the world having similar experience that so many people go through. Like, it just how you get to where you got to.
Right.
It's just awesome. I want you to talk a little bit about you. In my opinion, you have worked on some pretty high caliber stuff with your former employee and that sort of thing. And I want you to, I guess my thing is kind of walk through like when you get a big account, because I think that's what everybody's like, I want that big account. What it looks like when how that process works. Because like I know for me, like I just like to hear kind of like the process of how you brand stuff out. Like if someone's like, hey, we've got this idea, or hey, we need a commercial or for this quarter or whatever. Like, where do you start? And then kind of what's the process look like for somebody like you?
Yeah, so, I worked at a place called Mad Genius, and, we would work for a lot of larger, national clients. The process is really the same for working with a large client and a small client, is starting from a place of strategy, understanding who the client is, who they serve, what problem they solve, what makes them different to everybody else, and nailing that, and then going from a place of strategy to a place of execution. Well, how do we portray that visually? How do we portray that visually? How do we portray that with, video? How do we portray that on a website? How do we portray that in any kind of marketing? But it comes from understanding just a little bit about who they are and what they're trying to achieve, what their goals are, and what's unique about them compared to their competition. And so I think that really matters both to a large corporate Fortune 500 company. It matters to the startup, is having some of those things defined, so you can start from a place of wisdom as opposed to let's just try a bunch of stuff and see what sticks. Because what happens a lot of times is people miss the strategy part of it. They miss the homework. They miss the wrestling with the details, and then they spend money pointlessly. Because they don't know what's going to work. They don't understand who they are. They don't understand who they serve. And so they just start doing stuff. Hey, I'm going to market like this person. I'm going to market like that person. And then they're frustrated because they don't know why their stuff isn't working. Is because they've kind of skipped important steps into their strategy that has made them do stuff that's wasting a lot of money.
Yeah. You see that, most of our clients are local, but even the larger corporate clients, that we have, it's very similar, and I would agree, because most of the time people don't really know what they want, so they're looking for you to tell them. And you're right, most of the time, today I had a meeting with a guy. That's what he told me. He said, you're the first person that's sent me multiple text messages, emails, asked me for examples, and now you're having to sit down with me for an hour. Yeah. And he's like, the last company we had didn't do any of that.
Right.
And I'm like, how did
it's
they?
all in the details.
Yeah. How did they make a video for you? And he's like, I mean, they did a good job, but he said they just didn't feel like it had any life to it.
Right.
And I was like,
That's a good
he
point.
didn't know your story.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to portray you.
Well, and that's the difference between an amateur and a professional, is the questions they ask. And a non-professional will just try and put their creative flair on stuff. They'll try and show off, or sometimes even large agencies sometimes do this, is they do creative to impress other creatives, and they sometimes miss the whole goal of what the client has, some of their who they're trying to be and what they're trying to do and achieve and who they're trying to reach. And so asking good questions is what makes the difference between a professional and an amateur.
I see that too, is especially like in the industry that we're in. You see a lot of people that I think want to mimic somebody else, or they're like, oh, well, this guy's bigger than me and this is what he does, so I want to look like him. So they'll go out and put all this creative into these flashy, shiny things, and they don't feel real. They feel fake.
Right.
And I think that hurts you more than helps you, in my opinion. But speaking of that, when you talk about asking the right questions, what does that look like to you?
Well, and kind of going back to what you just said before we touch that is, they might think that the reason the other company is successful is because of they're running this billboard, they're running this ad. What about if their actual success is how they treat customers? What if their actual success is how they're adding value to the person they're serving? What about if their real success is their follow-up? So you can't just assume that this company is advertising on billboards everywhere, and they're I see their ads in all these magazines, and that's why they're successful. No, it could be a lot deeper than that.
Right. And
so you do the exact same thing and you fail, because when somebody calls your business, somebody answers the phone, it's like, what do you want?
Straight to the point.
And so, you're losing customers because the person answering your phones is terrible. Or when they walk into your shop, it smells, And so you've got to really be honest with, who you are, who you're serving, how you're doing it, the full experience of your brand.
Yeah.
And so for me, the way I distinguish brand and branding is, your brand is what people think and feel about what you say and do. And branding is everything you say and do. It used to be people say branding, it's your logo, branding is your colors, branding is your fonts. No, it's everything. Yeah. It's from the way you smell. It's from the music, the sounds in your space. It's from the experience people have with your staff. It's the colors of your space. It's the colors of what you're doing. So it's a lot more with that. So I just want to clarify that too, because people want to imitate other people, but they haven't done the due diligence of understanding why that person might be succeeding.
Yeah. And
so what was your question again?
Well, I'll go back to the question, but I agree wholeheartedly, and there's one reason why when we first moved into the space that we're in, I was just filling the space. I just put desk in here, and I was trying to, it had a flow to it. It was organized for the most part, but it was just like we had nothing for the walls, nothing. So I was like, I had some old car brand banners, and I was putting those up on the wall. We're just sticking stuff everywhere, and we've moved this office like 6 times, and it's done now. It's not going anywhere. But I called in a friend that I know that she's not necessarily an interior designer, but she's a real estate agent, and she's got a nice house, and
she understands.
She understands like attention to detail. And I said, hey, I want you to come in and help me decorate and design my office. And she goes, really? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I can just tell you've got the touch. So she comes in, she looks at the place, she's like, oh, I love your space, it's so great. I love this and that, blah, blah, blah. I love these windows, etc. I love your porch. She goes, kind of feels like a dorm room. And she was
come
right.
a long way.
Yeah.
She was right.
Yeah.
And so she went room by room. We talked about, obviously I wanted this room to be a podcast room. I wanted another room to be what it was. And she kind of walked through everything, and she just gave me a lot of suggestions. And she was like, you need a lot more symmetry. Chairs all need to match, desks need to match. But you need, everything was just like white chair and blue chair and red chair. And stuff was everywhere.
Like garage sale.
Yeah, and the front room, I think, to me, is the one that really, it's the first room you walk into, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's small. I had it set up like a.
I don't even remember what it was set up as.
It was I had a desk in there, and I was like, I had this idea like, oh, I'm going to get a front door person, put a phone up there, but it felt like a waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, you need to open this up. And so we do have some chairs in there that I don't think anyone's ever sat in, but it's not even chairs, it's a bench. It's like a little bench.
I've sat in it.
Yeah.
When we built it.
Yeah, when we built it.
You took it for a test drive.
Yeah. Just had to make sure it didn't fall apart.
But it's true. It's like what you said. Like originally I wanted to put a TV in there, and right when you walked in the door, I was like, oh, I'm going to have our stuff playing up there. And that's great. But now just have like a cool picture up there with some music playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to me, that's so much better because you walk in, it's nice, it's comfortable.
It's relaxing a little bit.
Yeah. So... but no, what I was asking about was questioning, like, what are the right questions? Like, how do you, in your opinion, like, how do you get to know somebody so that you portray them the right way? Like, what's your take on that?
Well, I think definitely finding out their mission, vision, values. Those are always important. What drives you? What are you about? What's important to you? Who do you help? And defining clearly who you help, and then maybe even defining who you don't help. Like who are you not for? Like, is there somebody that you're not for? Because if you don't have that clearly defined, then you don't know how to advertise, and you don't know how to recognize when this is not a right fit for your services when somebody comes through your door. And so, getting a clear understanding of yourself is important. What are our values? What do we stand for? What do we stand against? What are we fighting for? What are we helping people solve? What makes us different? How do we stand out from everybody else in the same space as us? There's a new Italian restaurant opening up in a place here in town that is opening up in a place where 2 other Italian restaurants have failed.
I've seen that.
And I posted about it because they posted, hey, we're opening this thing. And I asked the question, so what makes you different? You're opening an Italian restaurant in the exact same space where 2 other Italian restaurants have failed. And how are you different from them? Like, how are you going to make yourself different and stand out? Mm-hmm. And somebody posted, I don't know whether they were connected or not, well, they don't just offer Italian food, they offer other stuff as well. And I'm like, that's actually not a good thing. You know, just say, hey, we offer, you know, you can get sushi and tacos and donuts at this Italian restaurant. It's like, no, that's not, you know, a better thing would be is we offer authentic Italian food and experiences, you know. Because I remember one of the previous places that were in that same space, I went there on a date with my wife, and over the sound system was hip hop playing. And I thought, well, you know, that's fine in the right context, but if I go on a date with my wife to an Italian restaurant,
You want some Italian music?
yeah, right. I want some mandolins in there. I want a fiddle. I want something there that makes me feel like I'm the Godfather.
Yeah,
you know?
you're in Venice.
Yeah, right. And so that goes back to what we talked about, the audio experience people have with your space. And so, you know, understanding, you know, who you are and what makes you different from others, I think is pretty key. Because, you know, you can get into a community, you can get into a space where there's a lot of people doing exactly what you do. And you've got to figure out, you know, why people should choose you above them. And if you haven't figured that out, then you kind of blend in with the noise. And so I think asking some of those questions are a great way to start.
Yeah. I know you have questions.
I'm blanking.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm blanking. Really bad. Yeah.
I can tell you one of the things that I definitely want to hear a little bit more about, and that's your kind of your new venture now that you're kind of working on your own, doing your own thing, and telling people a little bit about that, what you do, but also like why you're different.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm different is because I want to start with strategy. And I'm a visual brand designer. I understand what matters when it comes to your visuals and how to get attention and how to differentiate. And so anytime I create a brand, anytime I create visuals, I really angst over how do I stand out in the marketplace? How do I stand out from everybody else doing the exact same thing as you're doing? And so, you know, we spent a lot of time in just understanding the business, understanding, you know, who you are, what you're about, who you serve, and, you know, any kind of personality, brand personality that you might have, because there could be, you know, accountant that might have a more laid-back personality than another accountant, you know, and that sometimes matters. You know, does your visual brand reflect that? And so, you know, right now that's what I'm doing is I'm helping businesses stand out from their competition and through visual brand strategy and design. And so that's what I've been doing. You know, I launched my own podcast about a year ago, you know, Head Smack Conversations with Misfits. And so that's been a really fun adventure, getting to talk to a lot of people that have achieved incredible things that, you know, some people never achieve in a lifetime. And just experts in their different realms of experience and expertise. And so that's been a lot of fun doing the podcast. And, you know, really it's not a income generator. It's more of an authority builder. And so that's kind of what the podcast has been, is just building authority in the space as an expert in branding.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people all the time that's kind of part of what I want to do, obviously, with this is you know, kind of tell a little bit more about what we do and why, you know, we're different. But one of the things that I've talked about every single time, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's also being able to tell people, like, we're not really, I mean, we do similar things to a lot of other people, but it's, in my opinion, I don't like the competition thing. Like, I feel like as creatives, we can work together. We're really technically all on the same team, right?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, there's enough piece of the pie for everybody to eat, right?
Of course.
And so that's been one of the things that I've really enjoyed, is getting to know the creatives here and kind of, I call it my side quest, is to let the world know, like, there's a lot of creatives here in the South. And it's a creative place. Like, you've got a lot more freedom here. You're not in a box as much. To me, I draw a lot of inspiration from just the culture itself, because it's very diverse, but it's also, you've got a lot of history. You've got just so much here, and then there's just a ton of talent. There's just a ton of talent.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I get that so much of like kind of where you're coming from, and it's just neat to see everybody doing other things. To me, I you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that's like, oh, it's my competition, and he's, you know, but I'm like, oh no, look at all this cool stuff he's doing and she's doing, and that, you know, it's neat. So real quick, can you tell maybe somebody how long have you been in, I guess, in the marketing or
The branding
world, doing what you
My
do?
entire career. I mean, it's all I've ever done. So 30 plus years.
Yeah. So I've been doing this on my own for about 7 years now. Been kind of sort of doing it for other businesses around since 2015, about close to the time we met. And I was just doing social media marketing type stuff. What would you say to someone young that wants to get into this? Because I mean,
Pick me. I've only been in this for 5 years now.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I don't know if you get a lot of it, but I've started getting a lot of moms and dads, and because most people my age in their 40s, they've got kids now that are getting ready to graduate, which is crazy to think. But they ask me, they're like, my kid's thinking about going into graphic design. My kid's thinking about going into photography and film and things like that. Well, you talked a little bit about when you were a young man and how you got into it. What kind of advice would you give somebody that's new or green to this, whether they're older or younger, doesn't matter, but they're wanting to get into this space and this industry?
I would tell them go for it. I mean, it's an exciting industry. Being able to help somebody transform their business and for them to have success and for you to be able to see your stuff driving down the road, or you go to a restaurant, or you see a billboard, or you see a vehicle graphic, or you see, I mean, it's pretty satisfying. Or you go to Barnes and Noble and see one of the book covers you designed, or go to Amazon and see something that you've created. It's incredibly satisfying to do it, and I would encourage anybody to give it a shot. But just know that you've got to be willing to evolve. Technology is rapidly changing. There was, maybe a decade or two of not a whole lot of change happening. It went from, everything being done manually to, in the, mid to late 90s, everything going computer based,
right?
To now AI. And you've got to be willing to evolve. You've got to be willing to, one of the things that as a young creative I had to get over is, for me, whenever I created something, I would present it and it would be like I was presenting a baby, and I would say, love my baby,
right.
Here's something that I've created, and, love my baby. And when they didn't like it, I got offended, like I got upset and mad, and it's like, how dare you not like my baby? It's like the cutest baby you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I had to separate myself from the work. Because you would walk around brokenhearted because you would have people that had the power to give you a subjective opinion, and you had to listen to it, or you wouldn't succeed. I mean, if you were like, well, you're just dumb, how dare you not like it, Well, if they have the power to be subjective, then you have no option.
Sure.
Now, obviously, you want them to be strategic and say, well, strategically, here's where it misses the mark. But if they're just subjective about it, you've got to be willing to listen to that opinion. Now, if they're professional and strategic in their opinion, then you've got to listen to that too.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and I think that comes from, as you grow as a designer, asking the right questions to make sure that what they're sharing with you is strategically in line with what they originally wanted done. And so, if you've produced something that missed the mark, that's on you. You need to be willing to change it. If they're like, well, this really needs to appeal to, to young moms in Madison or Ridgeland or wherever, and it feels very youthy, and you totally missed the mark with this. You've got to be willing to listen and not say, but it's cool. My friends like it.
It's cool to the wrong set of people.
Right, exactly. You've missed the mark strategically. And so as a young designer, that was a hard lesson to learn, because I would learn a new trick. I'd read a book, it was before YouTube and everything else. I'd get a new book that I'd read through in Barnes and Noble for free. I'd see a design magazine and it'd have something cool in it. And so I'd create something cool, and they're like, yeah, but that totally misses our audience.
Yeah.
And I'd be like,
Yeah.
but it's cool, it's got cool graphics and emboss effects and drop shadows, and,
Right.
and so, for a young designer getting into the craft, I would learn to separate yourself from the work a little bit. I mean, you got to love what you do, but you can't have such an attachment to it that if it misses the mark strategically, you get offended.
Yeah.
You have to.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I was gonna say you have to love it enough to separate your emotions from the work. So
Yeah,
that's
so
a hard thing for me too.
yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
it's super hard. We have this conversation on a regular basis.
Too much.
You're kind of you don't want to sell out, but you're selling yourself. You know what I mean? And it's hard because you do. I know for me for sure, just the business itself and what I built it around and the caliber that I want it done. When someone says something's not good enough or not what they wanted or what they expected, it is so deflating.
Right.
And I'm just kind of like frustrated and mostly frustrated myself, and then you have to kind of just pick yourself up off the floor
Right.
and move on and fix it and make it right. And but it's hard because it's our passion. Like we have a passion for it.
Right.
And so it's hard when that passion is just squashed away as being, who cares,
Yeah. But you've got to ask the right follow-up questions. You've got to ask the right strategic questions of where exactly did it miss the mark. Even sometimes when presenting logos, a lot of times I would present a logo in just one color. Because early on what I'd do is I'd present a bunch of logos and they all had different colors. And, the client would choose a concept based on colors, but it wasn't the best concept. There were other ones that I liked better, but I just kind of threw that one in, because I wanted to present, X amount of concepts. And they would sometimes choose the worst concept in my mind because they like the colors. And so, you've got to respond, the right way with the right questions, with the right feedback of what exactly didn't you like. And so, that's why, like I said, with logos, I present one logo in one color and then get feedback on that. Well, I don't like, the font. I don't like the way it feels. I don't like the weight. Well, tell me a little bit more about that. What exactly about the font? Is it too formal? Is it too casual? Is it not casual enough? Is it not formal enough? And just kind of keep having that discussion to find out exactly what it is, as opposed to just, well, let me keep throwing ideas at you, because, people will do that, in the international world that we live in.
Yeah.
There are people that give you unlimited revisions.
Yeah.
And then that basically turns the client into the art director. And that's not on you, the client. That's on me, as the professional, to give you the right strategic next move based on your feedback, not to just keep throwing stuff at you until you're satisfied.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because then you're having to tell me, well, move this up, move this down, change this color, tweak this color, alter that, figure that out. And then they become the art director of the project and you become the mouse jockey.
Yep.
And so, you've got to ask the right questions. You've got to be strategic around it. You've got to dive deeper and drill down to get that feedback. And as a young designer, sometimes we don't do that, and those are some of the mistakes I made, in the business early on. So yeah, any young designer wanting to jump into it, those are lessons you're going to have to learn. Those are going to be tough to learn, but it's a wonderful, fulfilling industry, very competitive, but it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah. That goes back a lot of times on video projects, stuff that I get really excited about. Cody would call me over and it's like, come take a look at this. And I go, yeah, you're on the right path. Just don't get married to it.
Yeah.
Because we know now, we've done it enough now that we know there's a lot of times where let's just get something kind of rough, good enough to show. Don't share this, but what do you think so far? Is this the right direction? You know, and give them the intro to it, or give them,
Give them the foundation so we know if we're in the right
here's kind of
direction.
where we're going. Do you like this? Is this, how's this feeling? And they're like, oh, I love it. Can't wait to see the rest of it. Or they're like, no, I kind of wanted to the last thing you want to hear as a video editor's, I love everything. Can you change the music? That's the meme, right?
Oh, man.
But it's like you don't want to get 16 hours into an edit and then all of a sudden they want different music and you got to start all over.
Yeah. Well, that's why with any creative project, you've got to have a series of approvals along the way.
Right.
Starting from as lo-fi as possible and then just adding more meat and muscle and veins to the body as you go along, and getting approvals along the way. And so any kind of creative endeavor that you have, if you can find a way to break it down into a series of approvals, you won't get down to the end and for the client to say, that just feels totally wrong.
Yeah.
And then have to do the whole process.
Yeah, right. And like you even said, can you change the music? Yeah, but we had the cuts synced to the music.
Right.
That is not as simple as just swap it out for a new audio track.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have these series of approvals in any endeavor creatively with a client, especially a client that, they are not the creative. They sometimes need these series of approvals of wireframes, of lo-fi versions, as sketches of storyboards or whatever that they can approve along the way. Right. So there's no surprises. And the less surprises you can come up with, in the process, you'll have a satisfied client, you'll have a satisfied creative, because you're not wasting time, because you've got it approved, you've got the wireframe approved, you've got the music pre-approved, you've got all of that approved as you go along, as opposed to waiting at the very end and saying, ta-da, and they're like, oh, no, that's not ta-da.
Yeah.
That's a no my.
Yeah. We've been there. There's been plenty of times where, we've tried to do that. For the most part, here's what we're going to do. Here's what's going to come. Show them what we got. Give them the bullet points. Here's this, that, and the other. And you put something together, and they go, "Oh, we can't use that clip." And you're like, "Oh, why not?" And they're like, "Because this is in it. We can't use that because of this." And it's like changes everything because you have nothing to replace it with. You have nowhere to go, and you have to kind of start over. It's been rare, but it happens.
Just part of it, I guess.
Yeah. So transitioning from that, I want to talk about kind of the last half here of the podcast. I want to get your take, your opinions, maybe some stuff you're looking forward to, some stuff you're using, but the future of where we're going. We talked about that earlier a little bit before we got started about how AI has changed a lot of stuff, how there's a lot of tools. A lot of people tell me all the time, they're like, are you nervous that AI is going to take your job? Those sort of things. So kind of tell me a little bit, maybe you can talk about what you're using, but where you think the future of all of this is going as far as design and video and things like that in the world of AI.
Yeah, AI is, it's hard to believe that it's only been around for, 2 years, less than 2 years, and how much it's evolved. Just the learning models as well as the visual models. I mean, we joked around not too long ago about the six-fingered, they have 6 fingers on the people. That's silly, And 2 months later, it's like, yeah, that looks like a photograph. It's just evolving so rapidly, and I think it's gonna. A lot of people are gonna lose jobs. A lot of people are gonna get jobs. With every new technology, there's always people that fall to the wayside. Typesetting. People that created. The prints or the film for printing and for setting up typography on the sheets of, or doing the lead type and all of that. I mean, they're out of jobs now. When the computer came around and desktop publishing came around. People who did calligraphy, people that hand wrote things, people suffered from that. When photography came out, oh my goodness, painters, nobody's going to want painters anymore because, photography is out now. Well, painting is still around, and painting evolved, and it also created new movements where it was no longer photorealistic. It was a little more creative, a little more abstract.
Expressive,
Yeah, and so with every new technology, there are people who fall by the wayside. There are people that excel. There are people that could never have been in an industry, suddenly can be in an industry. For me, I could never have been a graphic designer before computers. I don't think my ADD, my attention span, my interest, my skill set could have made it.
Yeah.
And I came into it just at the right time. Because when I went to college for design, like we were literally, if we were designing a business card, we were using gouache paints and paintbrushes to do lettering and do all. And man, I could not have survived in that. And so the reason I have my career is because of technology. But there are people who loved all that stuff that are no longer in business. So I think, and so with AI, I think it's the people that are going to utilize AI that are going to excel. I think average people that do average creativity and average writing are in danger. I don't think, all writers are in danger. Some writers are. I don't think all photographers are in danger. I think some are. Videographers, graphic designers. I think there are some that they're in danger. And then there are others that are going to take this technology and thrive. I think, there's going to be new design trends based on use of AI and the availability of certain creative things expressed through, these engines and figuring out how to do stuff in new ways. That is going to create different new design trends. And so yeah, I think AI is something you definitely need to be aware of. I think you need to understand it. I think you need to learn it. I think you need to pay attention to it. But don't fear it. I mean, you can't fear it. It's something that's super exciting, and it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people all the time, whenever they ask me that question, they're like, "Are you scared you're going to be without a job?" And I go, "No." And they go, "Why?" And I tell them, I said, "Because I know how to talk to the robots." And it's true. I mean, I use AI multiple times on a daily basis for everything, just about, in some way each day, whether it's on my mobile device or it's something I'm doing on the computer. I may be asking it for something. I was talking to a lady today. She was like, I almost got caught by a spam email, blah, 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 blah. And I told her, I said, you know what? Next time you get an email that you're unsure of, copy that email address and throw it in ChatGPT and ask it, is this spam?
Yeah.
It'll tell you. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
And I mean,
crazy.
I've started to thinking of ways to, like, let's test it. Let's see if we do this, will it do this? And just figuring out, what are its limitations. But for me, it's a similar situation, musician my whole life, and that didn't work out. Well, if there would have been no social media, I would have no job right now.
Right, right.
I don't know where I would be. I would probably be still selling cars.
Yeah.
But with that too, it's like I think about all the people that are influencers based off of short form video.
Right.
To me, I'd be really worried about that, because I feel like that's the kind of stuff that AI could easily take over. That segment of our industry is, can be a lot. The person that can create that and put that out, they can do it so much faster than you setting the phone up, recording yourself, editing yourself. AI can do it in just a few seconds with a few press of a buttons, versus you've got to spend an hour or two to make it, and then you've got to put out how many videos a day to get all your followers and viewers. So I think you just have to be, I'm with you. I think you just have to be aware of what's going on and where it's going, and you have to be able to adapt to it. And that's kind of that's what I look at, is not being super micro focused on the here and now, but where is the future going?
Yeah.
I've said it before as a joke, but it is a possibility. I mean, we're talking about, Elon Musk is talking about sending rockets to Mars and his robots walking off of the ship onto Mars. It's like, we could be filming in Mars one day. It's a possibility. You just have to think about that kind of stuff, and then, like, how do you do that? How do you adapt to that? How do you, as a marketer, how are you reaching those audiences and this, that, and the other? But you can't just, to me, you can't sit dormant. It's the story of, I mean, there's tons of them, but for me, the one that I remember the most, it's the story of BlackBerry. They weren't going to go the smartphone route. They banked everything on, we're the safe phone company, we're the secure phone company, and they had buttons when everybody else was going to a screen, and they didn't adapt, and they're dead.
Right.
And that's just the thing, is it's so many people, I think, just fight it instead of figuring out a way to
utilize it.
Use
it to the best of your ability.
You've got to add it to your toolbox. Everybody,
it's already there. You might as well.
Yeah, everybody in every industry needs to look at how to add AI to their toolbox.
Yeah,
because you're not going to be able to fight it, and the people that are going to beat you are the ones that have added it to their toolbox. And it's relevant to every business. I mean, websites can now have AI chatbots that are part of it that you train on everything about your business, all the answers, all the information that somebody might need. And so they visit your website and they can just ask, what hours are you open? When, I've got this pain in this part of my body. What should I do? And the AI can answer some of those questions, which cuts down on the amount of phone calls that you might get. You can still take phone calls. You don't want to take away that human element, but everybody can start using AI in some form. And so, definitely add it to your toolbox. Don't ignore it. Now, you don't have to become hyper into it, because there are professionals who do. That are into it, that understand it fully, that understand the latest best practices, the latest tools and all of that stuff, and you can hire them to help you with it. You don't have to be an expert in AI, but don't be ignorant of AI.
Yeah. I also think it's funny how new technologies and like stuff like that come along, and everyone immediately is just either against it or critical of it or whatever. But at the same time, you'll go watch a movie and you think, Batman with all his tools and all the stuff he can do is the greatest superhero in the world. Or Tony Stark can have this robot in the background that he talks to all the time, and everyone's like, oh, I wish I could have that, And then all of a sudden you have it, and it's just like, that's bad. And you know what I mean? It's like, you people are weird,
Right,
and
right.
I think that's the thing that most people miss, is they want to quickly villainize something new that's strange and foreign to them, instead of taking a breath, learn about it. Our industry is definitely one of the things, because there's still people here in Mississippi that are nervous about social media, that are scared to do anything on it, that are apprehensive about it. And I'm like, you're missing the boat.
Right. Right.
And what do you think, or is there any way to I guess I'm kind of answering my own question, but education, right?
Yeah.
What is, in your opinion, one of the best ways, or is there multiple best practices to kind of help educate not just potential customers and clients, but just the general public?
Well, I guess for them to just simply look and observe, who is succeeding in their space and what are the habits that they have. If they're on social, if they're running ads, if they're creating videos, if they're running billboards, pay attention to what people are using. Social media is a great way to get in front of a lot of people free. For a lot of people. Paid is, faster. If you have time and you have money, then, paid is the fastest way to get in front of people. If you don't have, if you have time but no money, then organic and social is a great way to do that, and try and grow through, activity and content and things like that. But if you have, want to speed up the time and you have the money, then you run ads. You pay to get in front of people. You pay to get in front of eyeballs, which is what social media would prefer, because they throttle what you're posting organically anyway. They'll first show it to a small group of people, and if those small group of people don't engage, it won't show it to anybody else. And so I've got thousands and thousands of people that follow me on Facebook, but when I look at the insights, Facebook will show my post to 20 people, and I'm like, wait a second, I work to get those thousands of people to follow me, and yet you're wanting me to pay you to show the people that I attracted my stuff.
That's right.
But that's what it is. That's the game. They make their money through, eyeballs, and for Facebook, you are not their customer, you are their product.
That's right.
And they sell your eyeballs to advertisers, and so they want people to pay to play, to get in front of people. And so, I would definitely look at what works out there and the cheapest way to get out there, and what works in your industry. For some people, direct mail still is a powerful thing.
Sure.
For some people, advertising in the right magazine is better than social media, because your audience might not be on Facebook. And understanding where your audience is. Your audience might not be on Facebook, but they're all over Instagram, or they're all over TikTok. So you've got to, go back to what we started from the very beginning, is understand who your audience is and where they get their entertainment and information.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people that all the time. I tell them, I was like, Facebook used to be for social, get on there, find out your stuff, hang out with your friends. It's not now. It is one of the biggest advertising companies in the world. That's all. That's
Right.
what they are.
Right.
And they were smart to make that shift. And somebody that's been in that, I saw it coming, years ago. It's like, oh, yep, there it is. Here comes the shift, and everything has. It's slowly but surely shifted that direction, to the point now where I think about it. But that's probably why it is so much more difficult to run and manage a business page on there, is because they're not really worried about you being successful as a business on there as much as they're worried about them being successful as a marketing and advertising agency to the masses of people that are on there. So yeah, they are making it where you got to pay to play on their in their sandbox. So.
And they will promote you if you create content that gets people interested and gets people engaged, because that's more eyeballs to their platform.
Right.
And so, if they share it to a small group of people and all 20 of those people like it or engage or comment, that they're like, well, we're going to show this to another couple of hundred people. And they keep expanding that, because that brings more eyeballs to their platform where they sell advertising and they make money.
Right. Yeah. So real quick before we go, tell people how they can find the podcast, find out more about you and your business.
The best way is just VOPA. Everywhere online, I'm VOPA, VOPPA. And so if you want to find my website, it's VOPA.com. If you want to find my social handles, it's VOPA.com, or it's VOPA at VOPA. If you want to get access to my podcasts, Head Smack, Conversations with Misfits, if you type in Head Smack into Spotify or Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, you'll find it there. Or there's a link on VOPA.com. So.
There you go. Perfect. Thanks, Paul, again. Go ahead.
I actually have a question.
Go.
Talking about branding, how did you come up with VOPA?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I guess you can't tell that.
I feel like
I
we can't leave without you answering
so
something.
going back to the very beginning, to the very first question, and to the very first part of my history, is I went to an all-boys high school. And so in an all-boys high school, like I said, it's kind of like a mini prison. We don't call ourselves by our first names. It was by our last names. And so, or by nicknames, and so we had all kinds of, nicknames for each other, or we went by last names. Well, they didn't have a nickname for me, but they would call me, they couldn't say PAVOLNI, and so they would call me Pava for the longest time. And then one recess, after we had finished beating each other up or whatever we did, we were saying our names backwards just for the fun of it, and mine was In Lavop. And they're like, VOP, we like VOP. And so they combined it with my previous nickname, Pava, and they created VOPA. And so it was a nickname all the way from high school.
Wow.
And it kind of stuck with me. There were some people that never knew my real name. I was always VOPA.
Wow.
That was just the nickname.
Wow.
And so when it came time to name my business, I'm like, I'm going with VOPA, because nobody else is going to have that. I can buy the URL. I can grab up every social media handle. Now there are some that are using VOPA in different countries, but it started from a nickname, and it was something unique and memorable. And once you hear it, it kind of sticks in your mind. And so if you hear it again, it's like, I've heard that before, because it's something so unique.
Yeah. I guess I've never heard that story. I just always knew that was part of who you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also, if you go watch his podcast, you can see in the background.
That's great.
Great branding. Again, thanks, Paul, so much for coming by. You're
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
definitely
Fun.
a wealth of knowledge. You're somebody that we kind of look up to, and so it's good to see what you're doing. It's always inspiring. It's always definitely teaching to a certain degree. So thank you so much for coming by.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right,
All right.
guys. Till next time.
See ya.